Hi, my name is John Richardson, and you'll probably recognize me as a long-standing member here at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. In fact, I and my family have been here for about 25 years. So I've seen a lot of things happen in this church, and a lot of really good things on top of that. So the reason I'm here today is to talk a little bit about our stewardship campaign, which of course is kicking off now as we speak. So I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about what stewardship means to me in the context of what St. Andrew's means to me. So I was telling Mother Barbara, I'm a bit of a storyteller, so I like to use concrete examples whenever possible. So one of these that really struck me was last year at about this time when I was senior warden here. We were facing a large budget deficit, and I think most of you will remember that. And Mother Barbara and the vestry and myself were struggling with how to deal with this budget deficit. Our feeling was that if we didn't get ahead of this right away, St. Andrew's days were going to be numbered. So one thing that we actually figured out amongst ourselves is that we really needed to talk about the issue. And we really needed to let God into our conversation as we were talking about these issues. So it was actually a very tough thing to do, but we realized ultimately that sacrifices would have to be made in terms of how we spend our money, but that we were also going to have to find a way to increase the amount of giving that was going to happen. So the question then became, how do we do that? So ultimately, after chewing on this quite a bit, we decided that we needed to come directly to you, the congregation, and we had to have this discussion about stewardship in the parish. And this was tough for us because I think for many of us, stewardship and money especially are tough subjects to talk about, especially when you're under the roof of the church. However, it has to happen. We realized immediately that if we want to keep the lights on, if we want to keep the building in good condition so we have a beautiful place to worship, and probably most importantly, so that we can have the money to go out into the community and do the good works that are so important to us as parishioners here at St. Andrew's, we needed to keep that money rolling in. Now here's the thing. I have to remember that as I was sitting there one day talking to Mother Barbara about this, we were kind of at our lowest of lows, and I was thinking as a senior warden, if I ever needed a loaves and fishes moment and a little manna from heaven, this was going to be it. So we did. We decided to take this to you and be very honest about our situation and hope for the best with God beside us. And what happened was an absolute miracle. You will probably remember that when we came to you honestly with this situation, you as a congregation poured forth all of the goodness that you could possibly imagine, and you made this happen. We went from a $30,000 budget deficit to actually having more than we could possibly need. This came about through several one-time gifts that were large and important. We ended up with a grant from the diocese, but most importantly, we ended up with a lot of pledge money from you, our parishioners. Now, to me, this was absolutely God moving amongst us. The fact that we were able to accomplish this in such a short time. But here's what I'm thinking now. Times are flush for us right now. This is a good time to be a parishioner at St. Andrew's from a financial and service perspective. But we can't get lazy. We cannot be complacent. That's what got us into this situation to begin with. We started to think everything was okay when in fact it wasn't. We stopped talking about money when in fact we needed to continue to talk about the money required to keep things moving here. So I think we've kind of gotten to the point where we've overcome that. Our finances now are very public. We have an excellent treasurer. We're staying on top of our financial commitments. We know exactly what we've got in the bank, and that's been a huge improvement over where we were a year ago. So part of stewardship is not only giving of our time and our talent and our treasure, but to me stewardship also comes down to what do we do with that time, talent, and treasure. For example, I like to think of myself as a good steward of my environment. I don't litter. I like to make sure I turn the lights out when I leave the room. I try to ride my bike instead of drive. The same thing is true for us. We have to very carefully monitor and let you know about exactly how we use the treasure that you have given us through God's grace. So let's not be complacent. What we really need to think about is how to move forward and continue with this same level of commitment that we've developed in the past year. And I want to just end with one more simple story that came about, just to sort of prove to me that God is walking amongst us in all of this. And I was just talking to Mother Barbara about this, and it was very meaningful to me. As all of you know, I really love music. And I was thrilled to death when we were able to finally hire Brian Hellman as our music specialist here in the parish. And I remember sitting around with the music committee at one point, shortly after we had hired Brian. And I mentioned, wouldn't it be nice if we had a really good piano for Brian to play on during services? And literally almost a week or two after that, Joan Applegate, a wonderful parishioner here, did pass away. And guess what? She left us a beautiful Steinway piano, which we now have in the chancel of the church, which Brian plays for Sunday services. If that's not God walking amongst us, I don't know what is.